Carolyn, in this day and time, it is really hard to fathom that there are still 14,000 families in the United States that live without electricity and water. And they are our Navajo neighbors to the west. I'm Navajo, and this is so near and dear to my heart.
I'm Carolyn Parrs, clean tech communicator, coach, and host of Just Power, a podcast about creating a just transition to a clean energy future that leaves no one behind. If affordable, reliable, clean energy that benefits everyone is important to you, you're in the right place, my friend. We have the power to make that happen, and that's what's happening each week on the Just Power podcast. Welcome to Just Power. There's an Indigenous phrase that translates into water is life. And that couldn't be truer for the city of Gallup, New Mexico, and the Navajo Nation. Their groundwater levels have dropped apparently over 200 feet in the last 10 years. And on top of that, 40% of Navajo households have to haul water on a daily basis. Well, that all changed when New Mexico's largest energy provider, PNM, transferred water infrastructure to the Navajo Nation. That transfer came when PNM closed the San Juan generating station, which used water for electricity. Today, I have with me Cathy Newby, who is the Director of Tribal Affairs at PNM and a member of the Navajo Nation. And she's going to talk with us on how this all came to be and why this is more important than ever in our energy transition. So welcome, Cathy. So great to have you on.
Good morning, Carolyn. Good morning. Hello, Yate. Again, yes, my name is Cathy Newby, and I really appreciate the opportunity being here with you. We've done some great work in the past, and I'm just honored to be a part of your podcast.
Right.
Again, yes, my name is Cathy Newby, and Carolyn, if it's okay with you, I'd really like to introduce myself in Navajo, if that's okay with you.
Please do.
Thank you. And it really is out of respect for any of our tribal Indigenous people or Navajo Nation folks that might be listening in. But really, again, I'm going to say it in Navajo. Yat Cathy Newby, Rinshe, Toda Chitni Nase, Biligana Bushichin, Tobahe Bushiche, Biligana Bushanole, Tohachi Denasha. And Carolyn, what I said is, you basically introduced told you my name is Cathy Newby, but I also gave you my clans. And I was letting you know that on my mom's side, I am of the Bitterwater and Water's Edge clan. And then on my father's side, my father's Anglo, and I actually have Scottish, French, and Danish descent. And I was born in Tohatchi, New Mexico, which is just about 25 miles north of Gallup. And just a little bit of history regarding the clans. Here, full Navajo, you normally have 4 clans. And so in really the Navajo beliefs is that we are all culturally by clans connected to each other. And that's really important because we believe we're all related. And if you're a part of a specific clan, it's beyond your immediate family. It's really your obligation, your responsibility, to take care of your family members who are of the same clan of you. And it's really part of what we call not only the Navajo clan system, but it's called the Ke, the system, a belief of Ke. And it's really an extension of our family, as I said. And it's really about being deeply rooted and grounded in who you are as a Navajo person. And to give you just an idea of that, back in the day when folks were still traveling by horseback or wagon and they had nowhere to stay, because the Navajo Nation is 27,000 square miles, it was usually someone from the same clan that took them in and fed them and kept them overnight. And that still rings true here in modern times of understanding that when I introduce myself in Navajo and we're of the same clan, it just gives the audience folks an understanding of who I am. And it's really a sign of respect to our elders. So I really just wanted to bring that to you and bring that to the podcast and just something part of our Navajo culture.
Thank you so much. That's like setting the stage for all of this. What we're going to be talking about, which is a really a big deal. What happened in New Mexico around the water transfer. Uh, but before we get into that, Cathy, I know Cathy because Cathy and P&M is actually the client of mine, and I've worked with Cathy. You've said to me once that I'm Indigenous first, right? And then everything else after that. Tell me a little bit about what that means for you.
What it means is that, first and foremost, and I say that I'm the director of tribal government customer engagement for PNM, and we work. There's 23 sovereign nations in New Mexico, and PNM has the privilege, and we're proud to work with 18 of the 23 tribes in New Mexico.
Right.
And we deal every day with tribal presidents, Pueblo governors, respected councils, and staff. And so when I say that my team and I are Indigenous first, it really means that although we're proud and happy to represent PNM, at the core of who we are and our core values, we are an Indigenous first. And therefore, we feel like we represent a leadership style that really advocates for tribes because we have that understanding of where we come from and who we are. And that makes us, that understanding of our communities paramount. And I think it produces a culture of trust with our leadership, with our communities, the communities we work with, and the communities we serve. And that I think is paramount to the interests not only of PNM, but to the interest of all of these tribes that we work with day in and day out.
Yes, we're going to go more deeply into that in this podcast today. Thank you for giving us that framework, which makes you the perfect person to be talking about this today. And tell me how this began, the transfer infrastructure, water infrastructure, transfer rights to the Navajo Nation, a little bit about where they were, right? Where and what is it's all happening still, right? This is in the process of happening, and what actually happened, who was involved, and how it occurred. So let us know a little bit about how that began.
And you're absolutely right. This, conceptually, this actually started as early as the 1960s, as I understand it. And there is just an amazing group of people representing about 4 to 5 different agencies and entities throughout this endeavor. But I think that first and foremost, it was the Bureau of Reclamation that was authorized to construct and operate the Navajo Gala Water Pipeline Project as a part of a settlement agreement, actually, to resolve the claims of the Navajo Nation to use the waters of the San Juan Basin in northwest New Mexico, which is where the San Juan generating station is located. And it was really that idea around that would ensure the benefit to Navajo people and to the Navajo Nation and to the state of New Mexico. And this water settlement agreement really was intended to provide water rights associated with water development projects like the Navajo Water Gallop Pipeline. And for the benefit for the nation in exchange for a release of claims of water that potentially might otherwise displace existing non-water uses in the basin in New Mexico. And again, I talked about the conceptualization back in the 1960s. The feasibility studies started taking place in 1971. And the planning of everything, the planning report that was drafted back in 1984. And then actually it was really in 2005.
60 years in the making, right? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And in 2005, the nation and the New Mexico actually reached that water rights settlement, and construction started in around about 2000. I don't really know exactly. I know after 2009, after the project was fully authorized by the federal government, work started.
Yeah. So how did this the actual when the coal plant closed, right? Something big happened, and there was it actually was initiated from, I believe, from your company, correct? PNM. to
Absolutely.
do this. So tell us a little bit about that. We're talking about
Sure.
energy justice today, right? So this is really an example of what can happen. So please say that more on that.
And 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 there's a myriad of issues and opportunities to this story, but one of the reasons that I wanted to be a part of the PNM workforce and family 20 years ago was this collective hope and work that we would do as a company could impact the lives of our Native American people. And through the vision and the compassion of our PNM leadership team and the advocacy that my team and I have had to do throughout the years,
Yes,
we're really
absolutely.
proud that we could participate and be on the kind of the edge, if you will, of a groundbreaking project. And Carolyn, we all know that PNM, as well as other states, other entities throughout the world, we're all looking to dramatically reduce greenhouse emissions from fossil fuel
Yes.
production, consumption of oil and gas, and tribal communities like the Navajo Nation very much rely on coal and natural gas production as their economic drivers. And so in our work with the Navajo Nation leadership, in the work that we've done through the years, as we go through this transition, it really is at the federal policy level, that the nation leaderships really feel that laws and the policies on the federal level to transition away from fossil fuels was imposed upon him, as opposed to developing things collaboratively with them.
Yeah.
And this was the situation back in 2019, if you recall, when the Navajo generating station at Lake Powell in Page, pretty much the news came in like within a 2-year window to the nation, which is really overnight. And so we got a lot of lesson learned, from that experience that we saw, and we also had a lot of planning going into things, to a lot of initiatives, as we understood that the closure of San Juan was coming. So 2 years later, we talk about the strategic approach of the landmark Energy Transition Act, and that legislation that's supported by a variety of different communities, including tribes, that really is led to the closure of the plant, but also really take a look at how we're going to do this responsibility. So as we started to close down San Juan Generating Station, we started thinking about how can we repurpose this water infrastructure, and the idea around the water Navajo Gallup water supply project. And this decision really saved the project roughly about $70 million and avoided construction costs of a new water infrastructure site, which would have been a little further west over near the Hogback area.
So,
And
Cathy, just for clarification, $70 million, it saved the Navajo Nation. When is that what you're saying? When that right? That's
save, yes,
significant. Yeah,
save the project in construction cost.
yeah, that's significant, right? And how has that impacted? Okay, that's a financial impact, a huge one, right? What other impacts and how many have been impacted by this transfer?
Well, I think the key of this is that the water infrastructure included the river and lake station property, our reservoir and pipelines, the pump houses, and one of the biggest I think impacts is the diversion facilities of the San Juan River and the reservoir to keep the water treatment plant running during major storm runoff events to prevent
Mm.
contaminations. And I think we all remember the contamination events of the gold mine spill. And by having the reservoir, this actually allows us to store clean water for weeks, avoiding that type of exposure to contaminants and protecting the actual water quality. And that piece of it, the project did not have, was not going to have into their plans if they were to construct a new one. So that was just another added bonus to the project.
Right, right. So how has life changed for the
And
nation there?
and it's starting to change because there's two sections, right? There's one that runs south that's going to keep running south into the greater Gallup area and some of the southern Navajo communities and communities to the east or near the Window Rock area. But there's also one that was just completed. It's called the Coverall Lateral, and that goes actually west. And the one of the entities involved is the Hickory Apache Nation. And if you look at their areas, their businesses south of the south end of the Hickory Apache Nation, all of these areas also benefit from it. And I want to point out that there's
Mm,
probably 5, 6 major agencies, including the Bureau of Reclamation,
okay.
certainly many departments involved with the Navajo Nation. Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, which is the tribally owned utility authority that'll eventually operate it and maintain it. Certainly the city of Gallup. And I feel like PNM came in fourth quarter and just a little game changing to maybe just to help get things over the finish line a little sooner. But really, there's just so many other entities that really deserve so much
That,
credit, and so many people, lives, paths, and careers that have, been that they put all of this work into.
yeah, that's so amazing. Um, what were some of the biggest learnings for you, maybe personally, and then also for your company, right? What in this transfer?
Oh gosh, I think we had a number of learnings. I think the biggest learning that we had was I think initially, when you're starting to deal with policies that affect how you're going to produce energy. I think we're so busy
Mhm.
as a company and intentionally, just trying to figure out how are we going to shut this down responsibly, this plant. And I don't know if we all really took time initially to think about how are we going to repurpose this facility. And I really have to give credit to one of our employees. We affectionately call him our water boy, and his name is Mike Green. And actually, he retired just earlier this year. But he was the one that gave me a call back in 18 and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I was just dumbstruck. I was just in awe of this idea. I wish I could claim it was mine, but it wasn't. But it really put the work into play into all the different things that we had to do in order to collaborate with all of these multi agencies and also collaborate with the local communities because when you really think about it and you start proposing this idea, I honestly didn't think about that number one, this deal's too good to be true. What kind of infrastructure are you
Right.
handing us? Is it dilapidated? Is it decent?
Right, so it'll
And then once
cost
they
us more money than we were gonna originally spend.
exactly to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
And I think the one that really threw me initially was when we started, talking with the local chapters in our Navajo communities. Is this? Are you really going to produce safe, clean drinking water
Mm.
from an infrastructure of a power plant? And
Yeah, that's a
I
great
so we
question.
we knew that there was a lot of work on. We helped somewhat, but really you got to give credit to the Bureau of Reclamation and their team and in doing that type of outreach. But those are those types of learnings, and of course, just wanting to get it, maybe come up with that idea sooner. We really had to shift things, into gear as we were trying to close these agreements. But overall, it's just a demonstration how multi layers of different entities, even including the Navajo Nation, can come
Yeah.
together to make something work that's really to the benefit of their people.
Yes, and you said earlier collaboration, right? And engagement. And often that doesn't happen on the front end of projects, but we're seeing more and more of that in this transition that energy equity, we hear energy justice, that what does meaningful engagement really mean? And how can we work with the communities that live there? So let me ask you, I know I just put out a few things there, but what does, to kind of set the stage, like what does energy equity or justice mean to you personally, Cathy?
Well, first I gotta, if you don't mind, I might bring just a little bit of context to that
Sure.
to our listeners. And I'm really proud to say this because PNM is among very few energy companies in the United States with a tribal government relations office and staffed and directed by a team, as we talked about, who are Indigenous and come from communities
Right.
that we serve. So we feel like we have this inherent understanding of the people, the culture, the issues and opportunities because we grew up in these communities. And I really believe that it is crucial for any company to have a tribal office if you're interacting with tribes. And it's not enough to have a quote unquote liaison, if you will. I know the definition of liaison of, certainly working the tribes, but we took it to a whole new level of having it at a leadership level. And that took time, that took education, that took advocacy, but it took the understanding of PNM leadership to understand that um, it's not just about consultation, if you will, to
Yes.
check the box to say that you checked in with that tribe.
Yes.
I report directly, to a vice president, and I meet with the president and COO on a regular basis. And we often, when we need to engage our leadership at the highest level with our tribal leaders, and because we understand that tribal leaders are regarded above even state governors, certainly mayors and officials, and in part is because of the tribal trust relationship, the trust responsibility with the U.S. government. And many companies
They don't
unintentionally
even know that, right?
disrespect and
Yeah.
marginalize tribes and
Yes.
tribal leaders. Exactly.
Right.
And
So
so I
number
think it's,
one, which is a big, I just want
I
to point
think that
out, yeah, it's what you said is so big that I just want to point out for our listeners, right? Number one, utilities, energy providers, energy developers, right? Um, have a a designated office, right? Tribal designated office with people from the indigenous communities that truly understand the culture. They grew up there. They get it, right? Instead of this liaison, or I mean, not to say you can't have that as well, but that is so key. So bravo that that happened. So that's number one, right? I asked you what energy equity meant. That is like, that's a foundational piece. Yeah.
and yes, absolutely. And on, we even have an outreach budget, and it's important that that outreach budget stays with this office. I have a team along with myself. I have two senior managers. One is from our Pueblo communities. His name is Travis Suazo, well respected. And then helping to manage the Navajo Nation and the Hickory Apache Nation. His name is Pivot City. He's also Navajo. And then we have a account manager in our account management team, specifically working with our larger accounts, which happen to be a lot of our larger casino accounts. For those Pueblo tribally run um, businesses that are important, that really just need that extra time and attention, we're ensuring that we're giving it to them. But I fundamentally believe, Carolyn, that energy access is really foundational to energy justice. And,
Mm.
my staff and I, we work every day to make sure all of our tribal members living in with the PNM territory, and we have 8 Pueblo customers, and they run from the furthest north we have is Tesuque Pueblo, and if you start coming south of
Okay.
Santa Fe, we have Cojudi, Santo Domingo, Santa Ana, San Felipe, Sandia, and Sleta Pueblo. Then we also serve the Laguna Pueblos, Route 66 businesses, just about 15 miles west of Albuquerque. And then we serve the ski resort of the Mescalero Apache Nation.
Hmm.
So those are our customers, and we are constantly working every day. Our tribal leaders have a pipeline directly to us in terms of addressing their needs, addressing outages, addressing their concerns, and everything we do around these major initiatives around maintenance, transmission, and wildfire mitigation, just all sorts of new infrastructure projects. My team and I lead a variety of different departments within PNM in communicating as proactively as we can with our tribal leadership and their senior staff.
Yeah. It's like a nation within a nation, right? I don't know if that's saying it correctly, but it feels it's like it's it's totally different the way it works than what it happens the federal government or the state governments, right? So, so that's a very big point here. And you said energy access, that's key here. Where does energy access and energy affordability come together for the tribes?
I think it's it's always been a difficult question. I think access and affordability are at the top of the list for so many of our tribes, and but so is what we hope is energy, the quality of energy, and
Yes.
ensuring that we're providing reliable energy, and we feel like with the advocacy of this office that we're doing that. We still have some areas. If you give Kojiti Pueblo as an example, is still on what is called a radial line. So and there's no redundant system there. But we're working very hard on upgrading that and trying to give them a redundant system. But it's also it's not just it's understanding their needs and understanding. Kejidi Pueblo is probably one of the most quietest, most polite Pueblos you can ever work with, and an outage that happens 20 minutes in Santa Fe or 20 minutes in Albuquerque, you're getting calls, you're getting texts, my power's out, and it's an inconvenience. Unfortunately, we had an outage with Kejidi that lasted almost 32 hours, and this took place about 3-4 months ago. And part of it is we just didn't have the parts that we needed for that substation. And but I got to give credit to PNM because we were boots on the ground, doing everything that we could, and trying to ensure that we're providing just some basic conveniences for them in order to get that turned around, which also called for us to definitely start looking into how we can enhance that service and give them a redundant service so that never happens again.
Yeah. So you said helping with if it does, and outages happen, right? If it does, that conveniences, right? What to do in between. What were some of those things that were offered?
We were on the ground with flashlights, certainly with water. We were making sure that here's the interesting part is that they were a couple of days away from one of their cultural days. So folks were stocking up the refrigerators in preparation to start cooking.
Yes.
And it wasn't their big feast day, but it was very similar, but not quite as big as a feast day. And so we had the concern that the food was going to spoil, and they had just made a huge investment into preparing for this. So we turned around and gave each and every qualified customer that is a customer of PNM, $100 gift card, just to be sure that once we got the power on, that they could go back out and repurchase the food that they needed to repurchase. And then just in constant communication, with leadership, because communication in a Pueblo, oftentimes some will call into the call center if there's an outage, but many of our tribal customers still look to the governor and their staff and in terms of communication and direction and updates. So it's very important that we're keeping that type of lines of communications open and trying to give updates as to when the power is going to return.
Right. So the community connects with the governor, right? And then the governor connects with you. Is that how that goes? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a question that's been asked. I have friends and colleagues that are interested in knowing more about how to work well with the tribal communities. And the question is, how do we engage in a credible way, right? With Indigenous communities, what can we do that we're not doing, right? Or what can we do that we can do better? So can you speak to that for a little bit, Cathy? You said one
Sure.
big thing, which is about like putting your stake in the ground and having a designated office, and that's huge. What else?
Well, I think I talked about, how, our leadership style, how we prioritize advocacy, and, um, and we're rooted in our values, our core values of who we are as, Indigenous people. And our tribal leaders understand that. And I really think that it really takes a lot of time. It's
Yeah.
an investment of time, Carolyn. And it's an investment in trying to get to know the communities you're serving and working with them and trying to work with them before you need something and
Yes.
and trying to build,
So key.
that type of
Well, I'll
collaboration.
stop you there. There you
And
go. Working with them before you need to actually get something or you need something, right? So it builds trust, it builds connection, right? It and community. So key.
and I can give you an example of what this looks like in a sense. We as you know, the Community Solar Act, passed in New Mexico. And there was a number of tribally friendly provisions that really can fast track community solar on tribal lands. As a matter of fact,
Nice.
PNM was invited to be a part of the Indian Advisory Committee that helped give input into the act when it passed through the legislature. And a lot of these provisions that, again, was done by a collaborative set of a lot of different leaders from environmental tribes, and them even inviting PNM to our tribal team to be to the dance, if you will, was really important. And these provisions to say that a project can be larger than 5 megawatts on projects
Hmm.
are not included in the 200 megawatt program cap that other entities that we have. There's a selection and competitive process that limits it to 200 megawatts. It can be residential and commercial customers, and you can go after. I could sign up in Pojadi or Santa Ana, or other tribes could sign up with other tribes. But and the tribes and the tribal entities really get to keep the RECs generated, from their community solar facilities. And we thought once, the act passed, that there would just be an avalanche of our Pueblo customers coming forward to implement community solar. But here was the issue.
Hmm.
Tribes are being inundated with communities, with solar developers,
Oh,
as often as 2 to 3 times a week, and not understanding some of the key elements that you need to have in order to build those consistent relationships, understanding the community needs,
yes.
engaging with tribal leadership, and really, really getting down to the core of addressing their affordable energy solutions or their needs. And do you understand the tribe's governance, whether leaders are elected or appointed, if they have a traditional form of government or a constitutional form of government? Does the tribe even have an energy policy? Because you're going to have varied opinions on renewable energy projects on their lands.
Right. It just
And
sounds
are
like
you
it kind of
emphasizing what's in it for the tribe?
right. So are you saying that they were inundated with developers probably everywhere from everywhere, right? Not just New Mexico, but nationally. And I know that's happening to even others, but coming into the nations, right? And the pueblos and the tribes with zero, what impact? How was that for you and also for the impact of the communities and what resulted from that?
Oh, that's a great question, Carolyn. I think what happened or started to happen is again our customer tribes. turned around and asked some assistance from our office, which is really just is just we're just proud of, is what I could say, because we feel like we've established that credibility. They feel like we are their
Yes.
trusted energy partner. Um, and here's the thing: we couldn't recommend one developer over another. We're not allowed to do something like that. But we can, ask the tribe to ask, number one, what do you want out of it? Number two, how long do you, plan to, be in this field? And asking just basic questions of, do you want that developer to be local, and how long do they plan to, to be there, and are they meeting your needs? And to the point where some of our tribes asked us to sit in their meetings when a developer was, trying to make, a pitch. And again, not to say, hey, we're not allowed to do that. We have to be very objective, but it was really just listening in and, advising, tribal leadership from at least perspective of P&M, because we're here to work with the tribe, and certainly the developer, once the tribe, chooses that.
Yeah.
And making sure that, the developer, the tribe understands, the smart ones know that, you need your energy company involved in any major, project you're doing. Having us early and having us at the table, giving that and you knowing the process is really key to a successful, partnership. As we stand today, as we record today, and today this podcast, we have not yet we haven't gotten an application yet, but we know for sure 2 are coming. And we know that'll be in partnership with one of our Pueblo tribes. And the good thing about this is, with a lot of the federal energy grants, through the Department of Interior, through the Indian Energy Office, and through the Bureau of Indian Affairs granting funds, the Pueblo is Santa Ana Pueblo, and they actually receive funding for 2 sites for community solar. And we took it even a step further. We P&M had applied for a grant under the U.S. Department of Energy's Grid Resilience and Innovation Program partnership, and we're partnering in partnership with Santa Ana Pueblo, as they've applied for their community and received the grant for their community solar. And what we're looking at is to develop what we call a virtual power plant, and that will aggregate the capacities of multiple small and dispersed resources, such as solar panels, batteries, demand response systems, to create a larger resource that can really look to support grid stability. We don't know yet if we've won this grant. We hope we will know by later this year, or we know that or early next year. But we're, again, trying to move into those phases of, not only are we here to work and embrace, community solar for your communities, we're here to understand how we can integrate that into our system, because we all know that, solar, wind, they're intermittent, and it creates a flux, if you will, variations onto our system that we have to manage. So how do we go about?
What is this? What is a virtual power plant? Just so we have an idea.
It's really just it's really just trying to look at how we, look at multiple different, they're all connected, if you will, and looking at multiple small and dispersed resources. Santa Ana won't be the only community solar. There'll be other resources on this, what we call a virtual power plant, and we're kind of trying to create this larger resource, if you will, that we can understand how it supports grid stability and integration of intermittent and renewable resources.
Okay.
I'm still learning the concept of it as we go, but it's really for us to figure out how we can, kind of aggregate a lot of different resources, and how we're able to, put them onto the system without fluctuating our system too much.
Yeah, this is innovation, right? This is what the energy transition is about.
Yes, exactly. And I should say that it's coordinated, managed through advanced, types of software technologies. and just looking at those types of opportunities. The benefits to the Pueblo, there are benefits. There's certainly financial incentives for participation, but it's also looking at how PNM can provide even greater technical assistance to the Pueblo, and promote education and potential job creation, through this process.
Right.
And that component also includes the Justice 40, which is an advance on equity through system-wide benefits to disadvantaged communities. So we see it as a win-win. And I think the job and the opportunities, the jobs, is just a takeoff of PNM has had a American Indian Engineering Internship Program, since 2010. And every year we hire in 3 to 4 summer college summer students who are Native American in work in our various different engineering capacities.
Right.
And our goal, of course, is looking to hire young engineers and work into our workforce. And if we haven't done that, then at least we've given those students just a great work and career opportunity to work the summer or the fall for PNM.
And train them perhaps for the future, because in this transition, the jobs, right? This is part of really the equity piece as well, that there's incredible jobs that can be had for our clean energy needs going forward, right? And I would say
Exactly.
this sounds like a match, right? A beautiful match that can happen. So coming full circle here, as we begin to wrap up, let me just ask you in a broad sense, what is the importance of energy justice that in this transition we're having, right? Why does that need to be front and center and not a sidebar anymore? We often it's the technology, right? Decarbonization, right? But if we don't put people in the middle of that, right, then we can fall back to systems that we've done in the past that do not have equity embedded in them.
Gosh, that's such a important question, and I think that tribes in New Mexico, I think I pride our state in how we collaborate, not just with PNM but our state overall. Because if you look at it, we have a cabinet level secretary that's appointed by the governor. We have a number of Native Americans of our legislators, and they're not just representing their own tribal communities. You have legislators who are Native American that are running from different pockets, and not necessarily just representing tribes. And the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, if you look at that, actually everything we do is managed. Everything we do is managed by the Regulation Commission. And last year, the Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, appointed a Native American Advisory Board to that commission. And I think it just speaks volumes as to where. I'm sorry?
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Governor
I think
Lujan.
Yeah, so I think it's important, and she selected 3 very good people, and it's important because oftentimes I keep saying this, that in decisions that even cities or counties make, they don't really realize the tribes are either upstream or downstream, and in New Mexico the only place you can go is east if you're going to do any sort of major energy corridor planning. Without involving a tribe. And so it's really incumbent on all of us, to understand that, our tribes, it's like dealing with their own little country. As sovereign nations, they have the right to govern, their lands, their people, on so many levels. And I think it's important that just because it's a sandbox that you don't know how to play in, doesn't mean that you should disregard it or not respect or value it as much, because we have learned as a company that in just almost every aspect of business that we do, tribes can either be partners or they can compromise your business or your policies. And tribes have been here since time immemorial.
Right.
And and anytime we have a shift in layoffs, or something happens in this city that's not going well, people move on to their next job. Tribes aren't going anywhere.
No,
They're
right.
always going to be here. And so it
I
really
love
just
that.
means that any entity that is here, should regard tribes and understand that maybe you might not have a direct business interest with them, but you definitely will somewhere. I
Yes,
hope
you
that
will.
answered the question.
Yeah, you did. And thank you so much for the insight of that. I learned so much today about the importance of the voices and the collaboration for the tribes, importance of the companies to not only honor, to embed that into their business models as well. And then somehow you're working the magic, Cathy, of bringing these entities together. And I know these things take time to build, and to build trust, to build relationships, and to stay connected. And there's a lot of ups and downs and in-betweens with all of that in our energy transition.
Okay. Carolyn, I really appreciate you. Again, this is just an amazing opportunity, and I really want to take this opportunity with your listeners to really plug an initiative called Light Up Navajo. And it is really hard at this time, a day and time, to fathom that there's still roughly about 14,000 families in the United States that live without electricity and water. And they are our Navajo neighbors to the west. I'm Navajo, and again, it is a challenge because our cultural beliefs, tie Navajo people to their land, and it's very much a challenge trying to extend electricity to some of these remote areas of the Navajo Nation, where families are just not going to leave. They're going to continue to live where they're culturally tied to, and continue to go without water and electricity. So I think in spanning into 3 states, 27,000 square miles, Light Up Navajo actually became an initiative back in 2019. And this is where Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, in collaboration with the American Public Power Association, decided to start a program to send volunteer crews that energy companies would send to go volunteer for an 11-week period, mainly in the summer, out to Navajo to actually run distribution lines and set meters and set poles to light up homes for Navajo people. I'm proud to say that PNM has been participating since 2024. We send 2 crews every summer, and I think since the inception, Light Up Navajo has lit over 1,000 homes since the started. And it's that understanding that electricity is not a luxury. It's a necessity.
Yes.
And it's really a transformative experience to see our crews get to stand there when that Navajo family actually turns on that meter, turns on that light for the very first time. They really get to see that.
That's remarkable. We will put that in our show notes as well. That the Light Up, that is an amazing program that's been going for a while, right? Way beyond even the Energy Transition Act, right? This was happening. So thank you to you and PNM for making that happen. I also know, to kind of piggyback on what you just said, Cathy, is that New Mexico won a $157 million Solar for All grant that came out of the federal government with the investments to underserved communities. And apparently those solar dollars will go right to also partially, I hear, to the homes that do not have electricity, right? Even in today's day and age, not to have electricity, we got to end that. So it's a lot of good things are happening in New Mexico for the people that live there, and hopefully, I think, to be a model, right, for other utilities, for other energy providers to see how to do it, right? And you've definitely definitely proved that today, Cathy, on what to do right. And I hope others are listening. So thank you for sharing that.
I'll give you one more story. This happened Friday, just this last Friday. I got a text at 6 a.m. and it was from the governor of Santa Liga Puebla, and said, Cathy, our power's out to the entire village. And so that's my pipe. The pipeline is to me. Some of them probably went to the call center. So I call what we call doc ops, and they say, yeah, Cathy, car hit a pole and knocked the pole down and knocked out all the power.
Okay.
It was All Souls Day, right?
Oh,
And so
right.
their families were all prepping for All Souls, cooking, everything. And they had no power.
Oh my God.
The governor was just getting bombarded. So what I had to do is I took it to the level of our vice president just to make sure that we all understood that we had every resource possible out there to get power restored, because this is one of the most critical cultural days and religious days that our pueblos can ever have. And we need to put all hands on the ground to make sure that we get this done. And we did. It still took us some time. You know, one of the things he said that he said back to me in a text, just so you're aware, this is to the, because I was providing him updates as we went along. And he said, once power was restored, he expressed his gratitude in a text, and understanding that this is All Souls Day, right? And he said, Cathy, thank you for your services. May the departed give you spiritual strength, wisdom, and power to continue to serve our tribal nations and Pueblo leaders.
Wow.
In a text, I mean, and
yeah,
that's why I do the work I do.
Yeah.
So
I know
but we were on it. We stayed on it. But that was, sometimes your day's planned and things like this happen. But there's nothing more valuable and compassionate about a leader when the leader does something like that. And that's why you went with this camp. Supporting me and advocating for them. So anyway, I don't really need to get too emotional on that one, but yeah.
That's why you do what you do, Cathy.
Yeah.
Right?
So I thought
that's why we're here. Thank you again for joining us. And just remember, the time is now to create sustainable and equitable energy that leaves no one behind, because we're all in this together. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to Just Power wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really loved it, leave us a review and tell everyone you know about our podcast. It's going to take all of us to create a clean energy future that leaves no one behind.
The Just Power podcast is brought to you by New Mexico State University and Mind Over Markets, helping clean energy, clean tech, and regenerative businesses craft clear and compelling messaging that scales. Want to continue this conversation with Carolyn? Follow her on LinkedIn and follow the Just Power podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and on our YouTube channel. And for more intriguing conversations, follow New Mexico State University's microlearning social pages on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube.